The other day at work, I was telling someone about, internet lore, because I work with people who are younger than me. And I mentioned Dashcon. You know Dashcon? The ball pit. And, they didn't know what that was. I yearn to live in a world where I, too, don't know what Dashcon is.
Hello everyone, my name is Lisa and welcome to a mini-series / retrospective that I'm going to be doing on disastrous conventions. And today's episode is all about the infamous Dashcon / TumblrCon USA. And this is also a mukbang, so I have some strange foods that I got from the back rooms to eat while we watch the TikToks. So, without further ado, go get a snack and let's get into the TikToks. Okay, here we go. Dashcon.
Here's the story of the worst convention ever and its infamous ball pit. So Dashcon originally started on Tumblr as TumbleCon. They started a $4,000 fundraiser and everyone was really hyped because this con was supposed to be a big deal. Big names were going to be there, panels, and a huge ball pit. But behind the scenes, the organizers were arguing. There were 3 organizers, Kane, Meg, and Roxanne. Roxanne was the only one who ever did anything. Unpaid volunteers were hired to work Dashcon, but they didn't really get any help from Meg and Kane. 7 months before Dashcon started, one of their main guests backed out because Dashcon refused to pay them. Instead of announcing this or issuing refunds, Dashcon didn't say anything. So the day came of Dashcon and everything was in array, like panels were all messed up, there was nothing in the rooms, but still, 500 people showed up. Now, it's important to note that the Dashcon staff thought that 5,000 people would show up. The game room that they had talked about was only 1 TV and 1 console. And the giant ball pit wasn't so giant. Also, there's rumors that someone went to the bathroom in the ball pit. Roxanne was stressed out of her mind working while Kane and Meg were in their room drinking. Everything wasn't going too bad until people's rooms started declining. It was then that con-goers were told that they need to raise $17,000 in order for them to stay. They were told lies by the organizers like, oh, the hotel just doesn't like us. But in reality, it's because they thought that 5,000 people would show up, but only 500 did, so they weren't able to pay the fees. I kid you not, they gathered everyone in a room, and they passed around a bag, and then had a PayPal up so people could send money. Well, somehow they raised the money. And so in true Tumblr fashion, everyone raised their Hunger Game hands and sang We Are the Champions by Queen. Remember those volunteers? Yeah, well, their rooms were still getting canceled, and they were confused. That's because the way the organizers made back some of the money is by not paying for the volunteers' rooms anymore. So a bunch of volunteers quit. So people on Tumblr obviously start questioning Dashcon because of all this, and Dashcon just post all of these excuses. One of the biggest events at Dashcon was going to be the Welcome to Night Vale panel. They were supposed to start at 12, but nobody came out until 1:15. But it was only one of the organizers. The organizer explained that Welcome to Night Vale canceled. And obviously people were like, we want refunds, but they wouldn't allow refunds. So Dashcon goes to Tumblr and they announce what they're gonna do to solve this. You missed Night Vale? That's okay, because we're gonna enter you in a raffle and you get to spend an extra hour in the ball pit. That's right, that was the consultation prize. Pretty much all of the guests started leaving because no one was getting paid. And the vendors left as well because they weren't making any money. And so then the con-goers started leaving. To make it worse, Dashcon said that they were partnered with this charity, but the charity came forward and said that they weren't partnered with them. On the final day, the organizers held an apology panel. Anyways, let me know if you want any other crazy fandom stories like the glass cupcakes or Rainforest.
Dashcon truly was such a large moment in internet culture and history that it would need like a 3-hour Defunctland style video to appropriately and thoroughly go through everything that happened. I don't have that kind of time, so today we are going to do a brief breakdown of the ball pit. This is my disclaimer that a lot of what happened at Dashcon, including the ball pit, is hearsay. I was not there. I cannot confirm nor deny. We are just talking about the meme aspect of it all. Whether or not these things actually happened, I wasn't there. I've heard a lot of things both ways over the years. And I personally think this is one of those things that, like, if you weren't around when this happened to experience it, you're better off not knowing. So if you're truly that curious, continue on. And before anybody comments, why is this video so long? Get to the point. Well, in the video that this is a comment reply to, I did briefly explain in the caption. So start reading captions and stop complaining. Anyway, this moment of internet history is so prominent that we are starting on Wikipedia and not Know Your Meme. Dashcon was a Tumblr-based convention that was held in July of 2014, so like peak of Tumblr fandom popularity, and it was a con for the fandom side of Tumblr. It was not officially done or endorsed by Tumblr. It was like a by fans, for fans Tumblr-esque thing. The name Dash comes from the Tumblr dashboard. As I mentioned at the start of the video, a lot of things happened at this convention. And it went from like a by fans, for fans type pleasant thing to a disaster very, very quickly. One of the notable events and one of the biggest memes that came out of the weekend was the ball pit. The ball pit was roughly the size of a kiddie pool, like the one from that original video, and it was an otherwise like empty hall. Like, the ball pit. How the ball pit initially became a meme is that some big celebrity panels, such as Welcome to Night Vale, ended up dropping out of the convention due to other events that we're not going to get into in this video. And as compensation for some big name guests dropping out, a lot of attendees were reporting that the convention organizers were promising them an extra hour on the ball pit. The kiddie pool size ball pit. Again, whether or not this was actually promised as compensation, I wasn't there, but the idea of that quickly and immediately became a meme on Tumblr. People do cosplays of the Dashcon ball pit. That's how iconic the ball pit meme was. And as the evening and weekend progressed, there were multiple reports that people were, urinating in the ball pit. I remember seeing posts on Tumblr in real time warning people to not go near the ball pit because it smelled like pee. I've seen people since then say that the peeing in the ball pit was a rumor, but again, I was not actually there. But the impact of the rumors that people peed in the ball pit made people start saying that ball pits and snow have the same rules. You stay away from the yellow part.
Okay, write me a comment. Were you at Dashcon? I was not. I want your stories.
The story of the most infamous convention ever, Dashcon. Dashcon was a Tumblr convention and it was made for Tumblr fans by Tumblr fans. On day one of the con, 1,500 people showed up at 9 AM. However, the con hadn't actually scheduled anything until 1 PM, so these people just had to hang around until that time. One of the biggest attractions at this event was Steam Powered Giraffe were meant to be performing. However, Steam Powered Giraffe had actually cancelled months prior and they just didn't tell anyone. The bill for the convention centre hadn't actually been paid. They were in a hotel and they just didn't pay the hotel. Instead of just paying them with the money they made from the ticket sales, they apparently didn't have that much, so they just begged everyone for money. Somehow they managed to raise the funds and the con could continue. The next day, the stall holders weren't able to sell anything because everyone had just spent their money the night before trying to keep the con from closing. There was also this thing called Night Vale, which was meant to be happening, and people were waiting for hours for them to come out. Turns out that I think one of them went home and they just didn't say. They edited the website to say that anyone who bought a Night Vale ticket wouldn't get a refund. Instead, they would get a free hour in the ball pit. Here is a picture of the real ball pit. That same evening, the ball pit deflated and someone weed in it. There was actually so many other things that happened. This isn't even all of them.
Yeah, I created Dashcon. That's me, Nessie. Wikipedia has my government name, but yeah, that's me. Before anybody asks, no, I did not steal any money. No, I did not lure hundreds of people into a ballroom and then lock them there and then rob them. Yes, I did get people to sing show tunes, though. That is pretty much all I'm good for. Here I am on stage, dressed as Friska Circuit from Homestuck. To be fair, I was 15 when I started Dashcon. I was in, like, my Pinkie Pie party planning era. I just wanted a ball pit and several hundred people to hang out with me. And then I was 17 when the con actually happened. Between then was when, like, actual adults, I say actual adults, they were, like, 19. Even the oldest was 32. I'm 28 now. A 19-year-old is not an adult. The 32-year-old, maybe, yeah. But yeah, it wasn't a scam or anything, it was just stupidity. As far as Dashcon 2 goes, I'm not involved in any, like, the organizational planning or anything, but I will be going as a guest, and I'll be running a Rabies Pride panel. Because y'all might be wondering, where is the Dashcon ball pit girl now? And the answer to that is that I am a theatrical costume designer / raccoon biologist. Theater pays for the conservation of the critically endangered pygmy raccoon. Huzzah. I'm not joking about this. I'm like fully conducting IRB approved studies, so yay.
All right, write me a comment. What do you think of all this?
10 years ago, over the weekend of July 11th, 2014, what was originally described as a by the fans, for the fans Tumblr convention was held at the Renaissance Schaumburg Convention Center in Schaumburg, Illinois. It was originally called TumbleCon USA, and the idea for it was to be the largest gathering of the fandom side of Tumblr. So like Supernatural, Doctor Who, Sherlock, Welcome to Night Vale, that sort of thing. But then the organizers realized that they couldn't actually call it TumbleCon USA because they don't own the rights to the name Tumblr. They're not Tumblr, they're just fans of Tumblr. So they renamed it to Dashcon. You know, after the dashboard that you would swipe through or scroll through because it was 2014. Not even one day into the convention, rumors started circulating that things behind the scenes were very poorly organized, that vendors and celebrity guests were quickly dropping out of the convention, and that they were actually short on money. There's a lot of stories about how this did and did not go down circulating the internet, but from what I remember and what I have been told, the hotel convention center wanted $20,000 up front for the cost of running the convention, and apparently the Dashcon organizers had said that they had verbally negotiated with the hotel to be able to pay them that $20,000 at the end of the convention because they needed the duration of the convention to collect it. But you know, if it's not in writing, how do you have proof that the negotiation happened? People started trying to fundraise that $20,000 by the end of the evening so they wouldn't get kicked out. They were going around to people at the convention. They were trying to raise it online. There was pure chaos trying to get $20,000 in a matter of a few hours. And due to the lack of sufficient funds, a lot of the celebrity guests and panelists who were originally being hosted by the convention so that they could present at the convention were now being told that they had to foot the bill for their own hotel rooms because, you know, the convention was out of money. So a number of them dropped out. Most notably, the Welcome to Night Vale cast completely dropped out. Unsurprisingly, a lot of guests were very upset about not only this, but about the general chaos and disorganization of the whole entire weekend thus far. But Dashcon did offer some entertainment offerings that were not celebrity or panel related. So to compensate guests who were affected by these panel cancellations, they were offered an extra hour in the infamous Dashcon ball pit. There's a lot of rumors about what activities did and did not happen in the ball pit at Dashcon, but needless to say, Dashcon did not return for any additional years. So today, July 11th, marks the 10-year anniversary of the one and only Dashcon. Before anybody asks or brings it up, I am actually mutuals with Nessie, aka Lachlan, who is the founder of Dashcon. Being online as Dashcon was happening was wild. It was such a moment. It truly changed the trajectory of like fandom culture on the internet forever.
I have a message for everyone who recognizes this image here. Happy 10-year anniversary.
If you don't know what Dashcon is, or don't remember it, allow me to refresh your memory. And if you do remember, or you happened to go, I'm sorry. Dashcon was a fan convention that took place in July of 2014, and its primary focus was on Tumblr users, and within that, various fandoms that had a really big fan base on Tumblr. It was originally called TumbleCon, and it aimed to create the biggest gathering of Tumblr users at that time. But instead, it's well known for how much of a disaster it was, because, to be fair, it was organized by a teenager. This convention promised to celebrate very popular fandoms such as Doctor Who, Sherlock, and Supernatural, as well as many others, but this was peak Super Wholock fandom time, so that's most of what was being talked about. But right as the convention began, it was a disaster. The schedule promised a lot more than what was delivered. The events were poorly and sparsely planned, and right away vendors started leaving because of low sales, and the hotel allegedly demanded an upfront payment of $20,000 that couldn't be paid. So to evade cancellation, the organizers of Dashcon begged all of the attendees to donate money via PayPal. So to show their support, attendees rallied and demonstrated gestures from the Hunger Games and performed songs from their favorite musicals. Somehow, enough money was raised. However, people were very suspicious about whether or not the money was actually going to the hotel.
There were also, no guest accommodations. So the people who were, invited to the convention as guests were told they had to pay for their own rooms at the hotel, even though that's not what the organizers told them. So as a result, a lot of the panels were canceled because the people who were supposed to be on the panels didn't want to go anymore because they had no accommodations. As a result of the canceled panels, a small ball pit was offered as compensation. This ball pit. This is the actual ball pit from Dashcon. It's an infamous image. And attendees were told that they could have an extra hour in the ball pit as compensation for missing the panels they had come to the convention to see. Dashcon organizers attempted to rebrand as Emoticon, but they eventually canceled that as well due to financial and safety concerns. I feel like I say this in every one of these videos, but being on the internet when this was going down was unhinged. Ball pit memes still cycle around pretty consistently to this day because of how much of a lasting impact this had on the Tumblr community, and every single one of them makes me laugh.
This happened July 12th, 2014. This happened 9 years ago. World Heritage Event.
Unbelievable Moments in Convention History, Part 1. By this point, I'm pretty sure everyone knows what happened at Dashcon 2014. So the convention was supposed to be mostly of Tumblr users with a $65 entry, and they were going to have it in Illinois. The promised entertainment there was supposed to be Steam Powered Giraffe and Welcome to Night Vale. However, both entertainment pulled out months before they even showed up to Dashcon, and basically Dashcon was just kind of reeling in money for something that wasn't there. And apparently at the beginning of the convention, they got a call from the hotel telling them that the room they reserved would cost them $17,000, and they didn't receive their payment. Dashcon then rallied up its participants for the fundraiser in 2 days to raise that money. The money they raised was cash and was supposedly meant for the vendors and the artists there, so nobody really made their coin. As a result of not getting the memo that the entertainment wasn't there, participants were allowed 1 extra hour in the ball pit. Regarding that $17,000, nobody knows where that money is now.
The other day at work, I was telling someone about, internet lore, because I work with people who are younger than me. And I mentioned Dashcon. You know Dashcon? The ball pit. And, they didn't know what that was. I yearn to live in a world where I too don't know what Dashcon is. For anyone who doesn't know, this was Dashcon. It was the Tumblr convention, the website Tumblr. It was their convention that they put on in 2014 in Indiana, Illinois, somewhere in the Midwest. And all they had was a big empty room with a ball pit. So, welcome to 2014. Welcome to Dashcon.
What the hell is Dashcon? I'm kidding. Not everybody knows what Dashcon is. It might not be the most niche internet drama, but it certainly is niche, and it happened 7 or 8 years ago, which makes it ancient in the world of the internet. But basically, in 2013, a bunch of people on Tumblr thought it would be a good idea to have a Tumblr convention, raised some money to organize it, and the convention ended up happening in July of 2014. And during that weekend, people who were at the convention were, of course, on Tumblr, blogging about their experience as it was happening. And for us sitting at home, scrolling Tumblr all weekend, like you do, it became really obvious really quickly that things were not going well. You may have seen this photo before of a ball pit in an empty room. This is from Dashcon. And this became the most iconic image from the weekend because the organizers offered people who had gotten tickets to the Welcome to Night Vale event an extra hour in this ball pit as essentially a replacement for a refund on the ticket that they bought to go see Welcome to Night Vale, who had to cancel their appearance at Dashcon because the convention went back on their agreement to pay for flights and hotels. There was also a rumor that was going around years after the fact that somebody had a baby in the ball pit at Dashcon. That did not happen. The other thing that became very infamous from Dashcon is the fact that Friday night, the first night of the convention, the organizers asked the crowd to donate because the hotel was slamming them with a $20,000 fee that if they did not pay, they would be kicked out and the convention would be canceled on the spot. A couple of things about this are unclear even to this day. If this is true and the hotel was asking for this money. If they were asking for this money because the convention organizers didn't read their contract and actually owed this money way, way back. Or if this was an active scam. I tend to believe that it's probably that these convention organizers had no experience doing a convention, and so it was always going to be disorganized and kind of a mess because running a convention is really, really hard. But the convention was able to raise $17,000 in a matter of hours through PayPal, cash donations, so on. As far as I know, none of the people who donated ever received any money back. I don't think they were even tracking who was giving cash. And it kind of went down in history as this infamous failure of Tumblr culture. A lot of people have made fun of people who attended Dashcon in the past, and I don't think that's very nice because it was just a bunch of people who wanted to go hang out with their internet friends in person, which is very relatable. And I also don't think that the convention organizers were some sort of scamming demons. But one thing is for certain, no matter what future scandals happen on Tumblr, we will always have the ball pit.
So you want to know about Dashcon. Alright, so like to preface this all, I was 16 when I went. I might have been 17, but I'm pretty sure I was 16. So I didn't like see any of the, there was like not safe for work panels that were 18 plus that you had to have a ID for. So I don't know any of those. I don't know like what happened. I know their names, but like that's about it. Other than like the complete disaster that like was like, you know, paying back the $1,700, it was an alright con, you know. They did have a lot of panels. I went to a couple about queer baiting and all of that stuff, and I did not convince my parents to let me go because my brother drove me down there with my sister and a couple of friends. And my parents don't really know what Tumblr is, so they don't know internet very well, so that worked out well. Let me know what else you want to know.
Imagine being a teenager in 2014.
So, no, you don't really want to go back. Yeah, we had the 5 Seconds of Summer, One Direction, Glee was still on, yeah, whatever. But we also had, like, 2014 Tumblr, which was all cringe culture, glorification of mental illnesses, including mostly, like, depression, anxiety, eating disorders, those sort of things were glorified. We had Kik and Omegle. If you're not familiar with what those platforms are, Omegle lets you just connect with any stranger and chat with them. Kik is sort of like a messenger like WhatsApp, but combined with the with what Discord is to a lot of younger people now. We also had Shane Dawson and Onision. And we had Dashcon. Dashcon was 2014. You don't want Dashcon again. Please, no, not again.
So last weekend I went to Combo Breaker, the fighting game major, and it was great. It was a lot of fun. But it was located in the Renaissance Schaumburg Convention Center and Hotel. And I didn't realize this, but once upon a time, something else took place there. A different convention. Nobody told me this. I could have been standing in the immortal footprints of that ball pit while I was in line for popcorn, and I never would have known. I think I'm haunted now. Or, like, cursed. Like, I'm gonna go into my bathroom and there's gonna be, like, a gray ring stained across my bathtub.
Fun fact, I was the last person to go to Dashcon, and I have fucking proof. Those cheap sons of bitches just gave me a bunch of stickers that said Tumblr, and it was my gift for being the last person to show up and buy these goddamn overpriced tickets for this stupid-ass thing.
Put a finger down if you were on Tumblr when Dashcon happened.
Was I on Tumblr when Dashcon happened? Yes, I was, and I watched it unfold in real time, and there has yet to be anything else in my life that was as gloriously chaotic. I was in the Welcome to Night Vale fandom at the time, still am, by the way, but I was in the fandom at that time, so I was very heavily invested in seeing how the panel went, because they were supposed to be speakers at the Dashcon event, and that's how I found out that things were going south very quickly. And when I tell you When that first photo of the ball pit came through, we're talking core memory here. Whenever I see people talking about Dashcon when they were not there for it, I always think to myself, do not speak to me of the old laws. I was there when they were written. Brought back memories.
Okay, thank you very much for joining me today. Write me a comment. Were you at Dashcon in 2014? Would you go if they made a second Dashcon? Let me know what you think. I, again, did not go to Dashcon, but I remember those days of Tumblr, of the Doctor Who and the Sherlock and the Super Wholock and all that kind of stuff. Alright, see you guys next time. Bye!
Yeah, we can replace them with, like, balcony ticket. I was like, no, like, I finna be in the pit. Like,